the amazing fact, and the fact that frankly makes me proud of Russia, is that there are thousands of people in Russia who have publicly spoken out against Putin's regime, who have publicly spoken out against the war in Ukraine, even at the cost of personal freedom.
Vladimir Putin has just addressed the Russian people moments ago, announcing what Putin called the start of a military special operation, in his words, to demilitarize Ukraine.
President Vladimir Putin signed legislation Friday criminalizing reporting of the war in Ukraine that differs from the Kremlin's narrative. Foreign outlets have started to withdraw journalists for fear they could be imprisoned up to 15 years for reporting the truth.
Alexei Gorinov, a municipal lawyer and pro-democracy activist from the opposition party, was sentenced to 7 years in prison after being charged with disseminating knowingly false information about the Russian armed forces. He is the first person to be sentenced under the new federal laws. He was charged following a council meeting earlier in the year where he publicly stated that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was an act of aggression, that this was in fact a war, and that Ukrainian children were dying in it every day. Russian authorities say Alexei and the woman who was presiding over the council meeting had conspired to discredit the military using their official positions. The official investigation into his case took only 5 days. Gorinov did not plead guilty and used his last words in court to further denounce the war in Ukraine.
Maria Ponomorenko, a journalist and political activist from Siberia, was arrested and is being held by Russian authorities on charges of spreading false information under harsh new Russian censorship laws. The charges stem from a post she made on the social media platform Telegram, where she condemns the Russian military for the recent bombing of a theater in Ukraine, which killed hundreds of civilians, including many women and children. The Russian Defense Ministry has denied any responsibility for the deadly attack.
Но стоит только начать, нас много. Поймите, это кажется, пока ты у себя в квартире сидишь, что ты один такой. Нет, не один. Начни говорить, начни что-то делать. Просто начни, не сидеть на месте, не молчать.
Is 7 years in prison a fair sentence for the war at war? It seems to me absolutely unfair, to be honest. He just expressed his opinion. He didn't do anything. After all, he didn't incite any disobedience. He simply believes that a war is a war. The judge who sentenced him, she must go to jail. Because what is happening is a war, and the man is absolutely right. It seems to me that not. It is not fair. Because you're not allowed to say what he said. But this is, in fact, a war. It's a war in Ukraine. A war. He called it right.
I hope that when people in the West, or when people in the United States, or when people in the free world at large think about Russia, they will remember not only the aggressors and the war criminals who are sitting in the Kremlin, but also those who are standing up to them, because we are Russians too.
Please welcome to receive the 2024 recipient of the OXI Courage Award for Alexei Gorinov and Maria Ponomorenko, Ilya Yashin.
Good evening, my dear friends. It's fantastic to be here, actually, because, you know, I'm a lucky guy. Fate often smiles on me. For almost a quarter of a century, I have been engaged in independent pro-democracy politics in Russia, and all these years I have remained a critic of Vladimir Putin. Many of my friends who stood by me have been killed. In February 2015, Boris Nemtsov was shot dead in the center of Moscow near the Kremlin walls. In February 2024, Alexei Navalny was poisoned in prison above the Arctic Circle. But I was lucky. I survived, and I am here in front of you today. Just 3 months ago, I myself was in prison because I openly opposed the invasion of Ukraine, told Russian society the truth about that war and its victims, and publicly accused Vladimir Putin of criminal aggression against our neighbors. I spent more than 2 years in prison, but I was lucky and released in a historical exchange between the Kremlin and Western countries. I was lucky. I'm alive and free. But not all Russians who oppose Putin and oppose the war have been so lucky. Today I'm receiving an award here for my friend Alexei Gorinov and journalist Maria Ponomorenko, because they cannot be here tonight. They are still in prison in Russia. What are their crimes? Alexei Gorinov, a close friend of mine actually, Alexei Gorinov and I were deputies together in Moscow, and at the first council meeting after the big war started, Alexei suggested canceling children's festivals in our neighborhood for duration of the war. He said that we could not hold children's festival in Russia while Ukrainian children were being killed by Russian army's bomb in a neighboring country. He called for a minute of silence for the victims of this war started by Putin. That's it. This speech was the reason for his arrest, and he got 7 years in prison. Alexei Gorinov is being kept in very harsh conditions in the same prison where Navalny was kept. Gorinov is 63 years old. He had part of his lung removed, and he needs immediate medical help. However, instead of help, he is repeatedly sent to the punishment cell and tortured. The truth is he can die in prison. And realizing this breaks my heart. It pains me to realize that I can be here with you. I can call my parents. I can hug my friends and walk freely. But Gorinov is dying behind bars right now. And they do the same to Maria Ponomorenko, who was just telling the truth about this war as a journalist. I'm grateful to you for this award for Alexei and Maria, because it's an important sign of solidarity and another reason to remember them and other political prisoners in Russia who need to be saved. Using this podium, I appeal to all world leaders, to the heads of international organizations, and to anyone who has influence on global politics. I ask you, please save Alexei Gorinov. Please save journalist Maria Ponomorenko, who is to be honest, close to suicide due to physical and psychological pressure behind bars. Please save Igor Baryshnikov, who could die at any moment. Please save 16 years old teenager, Arseniy Turbin, a teenager whose only crime is that he put anti-war posters in the mailboxes of his house and who has been beaten in prison. Save Navalny's lawyers. Save filmmaker Zhenya Berkovich. Save Dr. Nadezhda Buyanova. Save journalists Tony Favorskaya and Artyom Krieger. Save the hundreds and hundreds of people who are having their lives ruined by Putin right now. I ask you to save thousands of Ukrainians, prisoners of wars, and civilian hostages kept in Russian jails. I also ask you to save the Belarusian political prisoners who are being killed in the prisons by Putin's ally Lukashenko. Save the brave Maria Kolesnikova, who has been isolated and is being told in prisons that everyone has forgotten about her. Save Ales Belyatsky, save Igor Babaryka, Viktor Babaryka, save Sergei Tikhanovsky. I ask you to seek new exchanges involving political prisoners, and I ask you to make every effort to get a political amnesty from Russian authorities. You know, I believe that the main point of politics is to save human lives. It's about stopping wars, not starting them. In getting innocent people out of prison, not putting people in jail for revenge. And in resisting tyranny, not watching silently and indifferently as a dictator tortures his own and neighboring people. Let us not watch Putin's crimes in silence. Let's make every effort to stop Putin, to stop the war, and please, to save people. Thank you very much.